I'm Stephen Scheuer, welcoming you to another in our series of oral histories in which we are fortunate indeed to be able to interview those persons who have helped shape the style and substance of television and our major media today.
William Greaves is a distinguished independent filmmaker whose work has been devoted to expressing the often neglected struggles and achievements of the African-American experience. Mr. Greaves has made more than 200 documentary films. Among his credits, executive producer and co-host of the groundbreaking NET series, Black Journal, and documentaries on Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, and Ida B. Wells, as well as many other critically acclaimed titles, including Black Power in America, Myth or Reality, and Still a Brother, Inside the Negro Middle Class. But loath to rest on his many laurels, he has recently completed a definitive biography of Ralph Bunche, An American Odyssey. Bill Greaves and I have had the pleasure of working together at the late lamented National Educational Television. And it is late and lamented.
Unfortunately.
Bill, I know you're currently in the very thick of things, once again on the Ralph Bunche project, its educational components. So for those of a younger generation, speak to us of the significance of Ralph Bunche.
Well, I would say that from time to time I think of Ralph Bunche as he's the Michael Jordan of international diplomacy, peacekeeping, peacemaking, and so on, or Tiger Woods, if you will. Literally, he was the Undersecretary General of the United Nations for Special Political Affairs, and he held that post for something like almost 20 years, roughly. He was very much involved in the setting up of the United Nations and the drafting of the Charter. As a matter of fact, he was the principal drafter of those sections of the Charter that led to the decolonization of the world. He was also the head of the trusteeship council, the head of the trusteeship department. He was also the person who set up the Atomic Energy Agency of the UN. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that he worked very closely with Eleanor Roosevelt in getting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights accepted by the entire General Assembly delegations by acclamation.
What have been the special challenges as a filmmaker in the Ralph Bunche story, the special challenges and how you solve those challenges or editorial problems?
Well, the challenges were awesome, frankly. I mean, to begin with, at the UCLA, the repository of his papers, that is the special collections section of the UCLA Research Library, has something like 200 boxes, illegal-sized boxes, with 3,000 folders of the writings and the various activities of Ralph Bunche. And one had to go through some of this material. I went through quite a bit of it because I had a doctoral student assist me going through the materials. But that was just the beginning. There were other sources, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. There was also material at the Ford Foundation on Bunche, at the United Nations archives, and so on. One had to cull through something like, by the time the film was made, I had gone through something like 4,000 to 5,000 photographs and selecting those photographs that really spoke to a particular issue that we were dealing with. Not only that, we had to go to the various archives, newsreel archives of the various networks, and also the Library of Congress and the National Archives. So there was all of this moving around that had to be done, along with 12 scholars who were experts on Bunche, and of course the main expert being Sir Brian Urquhart, who was the successor, a close colleague of Bunche, and his successor as the Undersecretary General for Special Political Affairs. He wrote the definitive biography of Bunche, and Brian and I worked very closely together to make sure that the film reflected the contents of his biography of his, I wouldn't say mentor, but his colleague.
He is Dr. Ralph Bunche, who only a few hours before was announced winner of the 1950 Nobel Peace Prize. First Negro ever to win the award, he is warmly congratulated.
Nobelstiftelsens högtidsdag den 10 december 1950 formade sig till en festdag.
I think Bunche is the only person I've ever heard of, at any rate, who actually tried to turn the Nobel Peace Prize down. It's not the usual thing nowadays. He wrote a letter to the Nobel Committee saying he greatly appreciated having been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, but he couldn't accept it because he was a member of the UN Secretariat, and his job was not competing for prizes, it was trying to get peace in the Middle East, and he felt it sort of distorted his function. And the Nobel Committee had never had a letter like this before, and so they got hold of Trygve Lie, who was a Norwegian, who was the Secretary General, and said, look here, this is absolutely terrible. I mean, here's somebody turning down the Peace Prize. It's absolutely outrageous. And Lie ordered Bunche to accept it, saying this is a prize to the United Nations, it's good for the organization, you cannot turn it down.
We knew he deserved it because he had worked so hard for it, and he had sacrificed so much. I mean, he'd been away from his family for so many weeks, working hard to bring about the 4 armistice agreements, and so we were, of course, elated.
I found that each stage of his life, chronologically speaking, contained the germ or the essence, the seed of a particular disposition that he will reflect later on. For example, his sense of dealing with the American creed. He felt that there was a lot of dissonance between the American creed and the practice of life in America. He felt that the American creed was not reflected in its relationship to the people of color, in particular the African American.
You were born and raised in Harlem. You were
Okay.
educated at Stuyvesant High School and
Right.
City College. And the last time we spoke, I asked you, and I ask you again, about some of your early influences, friends, parents, mentors, as well as some of your early epiphanies.
Well, let's see, early influences, friends. So I was a very lucky young man, a kid in Harlem actually, because one of my early influences was the black barber shop where I get my hair cut. And I would listen to these older men discussing all kinds of issues, political, social, cultural, and racial, and the like. And it was I used to look forward to getting my hair cut because I could hear what the older folks were thinking about. And it's very interesting because when I became the executive producer of Black Journal, when I'd sit down with the staff and we'd go through various suggestions that for programming purposes on this television series, I would always, the proposals that the various producers and directors and writers made, I would always filter it through my black barbershop in my head. I kept the black barbershop in my head to decide whether or not this particular subject matter would resonate with the black community and whether it would have educational impact and value for the white and the non-black community. And my ultimate decision was predicated on what I felt would be the response in the barbershop that I used to go to anyway.
Let's talk about some of the filmmakers that.
Well, you spoke of epiphany. One epiphany that I can think of is actually Oscar Micheaux. I mean, I used to live on 135th Street and 7th Avenue, and right across the street there was this man who used to come across the street carrying what I thought was a suitcase and a round can of something. I didn't know what it was that he was carrying, and me and my friends and I used to realize who he was, that he was a person who was somehow or other connected with some film that was going to be shown at this bar and grill, the Big Apple Bar and Grill. And we used to jump up on the railings, the iron railings of this bar and grill, and look through the window. There was a kind of a, how can I say, swiveled shutter that used to open up so that people could get oxygen in this bar and grill, and the screen would light up, and there would be these films, these movies being shown on the screen. And I didn't know who the guy was, and it wasn't until later on that I realized it was Oscar Micheaux. And he was my first, in a sense, contact with movies in terms of someone who had some kind of control of them. You know.
What kind of films were they? They were features?
Yeah, there were feature films.
About the black community?
Yeah, they were called race movies, you know.
Race
right,
films,
and they also were movies that showed at the Renaissance movie theater or the Apollo movie theater. There was the Alhambra movie theater. These were theaters and movie houses in Harlem that would show these films, and it was interesting.
Was it purely or basically entertainment? Was it about black families, about black individuals?
No, it was. They were entertainment films, but they tended to be a little more serious than the material coming out of Hollywood, which was a lot of buffoonery.
Moreland,
Stephen Fetchard, and Hattie McDaniel, and so on.
They were entertainment without being condescending.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. You said that the black filmmaker has been the precursor of the independent filmmaker, black or white, that black filmmakers had to rely on a parallel, separate cinema. I'd like you to continue that thought right after we've seen a clip of your biography of Ida B. Wells, and we'll continue that thought.
She was called by other black journalists the princess of the press.
Some black leaders had a problem with her militancy because they felt she was rocking the boat.
She was probably the most uncompromising black leader. She never backed down from anything.
This was what opened my eyes to what lynching really was. An excuse to get rid of Negroes who were acquiring wealth and property, and thus keep the race terrorized and keep the nigger down.
Ida B. Wells, A Passion for Justice, next on The American Experience.
The whole dichotomy, the whole separation of the races and whatnot, we're talking about the apartheid nature of American society, was very much in high gear when I was growing up as a kid in Harlem, and also later on. It became very apparent to me that there had to be changes in this society if it was going to work, because people were getting progressively unhappy with all the rhetoric about democracy and what have you, and couldn't get jobs, couldn't live in places, they couldn't eat in certain restaurants. I mean, it was terrible. So that really bothered me considerably, disturbed me, and that was one of the forces or factors that led to my becoming involved in film. And as what you were saying about this separate cinema, the independent cinema, this parallel cinema was developed by black producers sometime in the early teens of the 20th century to deal with the exclusionary practices of Hollywood in the films that were coming out of Hollywood during that whole period. So there was this parallel cinema, and led by people like Oscar Micheaux and William Alexander and so on. It was a very, very important development, and came in the wake of course, that classic racist film, Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffith's so-called masterpiece, was a very vicious, anti-human, anti-black, it was a very hostile piece of filmmaking, and there had to be a reaction to it, and the reaction was the emergence of the black cinema movement.
Bill, before you acted in film, you were an artist and a dancer, right? So tell us about that period.
One of the teachers at the YMCA thought that my artwork was sufficiently developed or advanced that I should join his adult class down at the WPA Arts project that was held on 116th Street and what was then Lenox Avenue. And so I was the only young person in this class. I was about 13 or 14. And one day, which I think you're talking about, I was in the classroom, working on kneading the clay and making sure that I would be able to do a good job in my next project. And this woman walked in this garment. She had on this loose garment, and the other adult artists were sort of waiting for the class to begin. And then the instructor said, "All right, we'll start the class now, and Miss So-and-so, would you please take off your robe?" And she takes off this robe, and there's this stark naked woman in front of this 13 or 14-year-old boy. And it was very dramatic. It was a rite of passage, shall we say, in that I was very, very nervous. And the instructor, his name was interesting, his name was William Artis, that was his name. He realized that I was very upset and very nervous, and he took me by the arm and sort of led me up to this platform, and said, "Now, Bill, have you noticed how she leans on this part of the platform, and how her leg, And I was so trying not to look this woman in the eyes and let her know that I was looking at her. And anyway, the upshot of it all was that's how I became an artist.
Your father was a minister.
Yes.
How did he take all this?
Well, he didn't know about it. First of all, I would never tell my father. My father was actually, he was a Pentecostal minister part-time. He also drove a taxi cab. And very straight-laced gentleman.
Very religious man.
Very religious man from the West Indies. So he didn't suffer fools, and I just wouldn't mention it to him.
What did he think of theater or dancing?
Well, he thought it was the work of the devil, and so being a teenager growing up, I rebelled against that idea and got into the theater and started dancing.
Bring us up to the time you were in the Actors Studio, which was famous for many reasons. It was under the direction of Lee Strasberg and Elia Kazan and many other household names. What influenced you, or what do you recall particularly that about the studio that helped determine or influence your career in film and the arts?
The Actors Studio was a really incredibly important phase of my life, and influence as well. Lee Strasberg and Kazan, two major influences. Brando was in the same class,
Yes.
and other very talented people, and it was so profoundly interesting and important to me that it made me aware that the kind of acting that I had been doing up to that point was not really as important as what I was learning at the Actors Studio, which was material approach to acting based on the Stanislavski system, which involved the total immersion of the consciousness of an actor in the fictional, in the fantasies of authors. You know, that when an author writes a play or a movie script, I mean, most of it is based on imagination. Well, the problem of the actor is to try and make that fantasy a reality for him or herself. And the Actors Studio really helped me to develop the ability to do that, both as an actor and then later on as a director, a movie and stage director, and of course as a teacher of actors.
Was it a fairly well integrated class at
Yes,
the studio?
yeah. The audition requirements, the criteria for entering the studio was based on talent. I mean, that's one of the things I really loved about the Actors Studio. Is it really, if you had the talent in you, went. You know, if you didn't have it, forget it. The Actors Studio, at the time that I was in there, let's see, there was Frank Silvera, who was black, Henry Scott, Lou Peterson, and myself. This was at a time when America was at its racist height, and it speaks well of the Actors Studio, actually. And it's been that way ever since, I think.
You mentioned Brando, for example.
Yeah.
Did you discuss things with Brando?
Well, Brando was
thinner Marlon Brando.
Brando was a character, really. I mean, listen, he was an immensely talented fellow, and we were very good friends. Sometimes we'd go up to Harlem together, and I would work out at the gym, and he would come to the gym, and because he was interested in boxing himself. He was interested in athletics, actually. And he used to also, you know, play games with you. I mean, if you called him up, he would pretend that he wasn't home, that it was the janitor or the painter who was, or some plumber repairing something in the apartment. He said, "Well, Mr. Brando isn't here," you know, and then he'd go through his routine. Yeah, but he was an awful tease, you know. But he was a lot of fun.
Good. Good. Did he encourage you further?
Yes, he did. As a matter of fact, a couple of times when I would do a particular scene in class, he would come to my defense if I wasn't doing it right in some way. He would make his perceptions known about my work as an actor. He was a very supportive person.
Tell us how you come to be in the famous Lost in the Stars production.
Oh. Lost in the Stars. Well, Lost in the Stars was based on the very extraordinary novel by a South African writer. It's called Cry the Beloved Country. And
Alan Paton.
Alan Paton was the author, yeah. And it was transformed from this dramatic novel into a dramatic, not musical, but a drama with music.
Operetta or whatever,
that sort
however
of,
you want to
that
call
sort
it,
of thing. And Todd Duncan was the star of the story.
About Kurt Weill's music?
Kurt Weill's music. Ruben Mamoulian was the director, and Maxwell Anderson wrote the
heavy hitters.
Yeah, so it was an extraordinary production, and very interestingly, that's when my first contact with Ralph Bunche. because he came backstage with a whole phalanx of diplomats and, you know, very important people from the United Nations.
Krishna Menon.
Nehru, Krishna Menon, a whole host of people, because Ralph Bunche was interested in South Africa.
Of course.
He was introduced to us, and he was very, that is, Nehru was introduced to us, and Bunche stood on the side and was very shy, almost self-effacing man, which was very interesting because he was emerging into a very powerful position at the United Nations, but you'd never know it by his demeanor. He was a very, very soft-spoken and very gentle and not, you didn't feel that he was very egotistical or anything like that, you know.
That was your very first meeting with him.
Yeah, as a member of the cast, I was featured in that particular production. Yeah.
What was your next meeting?
The next meeting, wasn't a meeting at all. I would just see him at a distance, you know, passing pieces of paper to people and that sort of thing. And you say, well, who is this guy? What is he doing? What's on those little pieces of paper? You know, that he was busy giving them instructions of what they had to do and so on, because he was a very powerful presence in the United Nations. He was quite an influence on its policies, on its practices.
You were still on Broadway from, what, 46 to about 1950, and which brings us to a play that I want to discuss, which was 20th Century.
My agent, well, he was my manager, Max Rosenbaum, called me up and said, listen, there's a play that's getting ready to go on Broadway called 20th Century, and it has Gloria Swanson in it, and Jose Ferrer is directing it, and blah, blah, blah. He said, why don't you go over, and I told him about you, and why don't you go over and see them, and because I'm pretty sure they would like to have you in the play, because I had already begun to develop something of a career as an actor in New York. And so I went over to the theater. It was the first day of rehearsal, as a matter of fact, and they put the script in my hand, and I looked at the script, and they wanted me to play this Uncle Tom, Stephen Fetchit character, this porter, this train called 20th Century, I think. Anyway, when I read the part, I realized it was, you know, absolutely a travesty. You know, it was full of those horrible stereotypes, racist stereotypes, and you know, it made me sick to my stomach, actually. So I just gave the script back to Ferrer and said, "Listen, I'm out of it. You know, I'm not interested." You know.
And what was his reaction to that?
He thought that maybe I didn't feel it was a big enough part for myself or something like that. I don't know that he saw it in those terms.
He got it.
Yeah, because America at that time was accustomed to being intensely racist, you know. I mean, I won't go into it, but it was just a very uncomfortable social and political environment for any young man with any kind of intelligence, or any young woman for that matter. It just was not a healthy social psychological climate for a black person or any person of color to function in.
Was that the event, if you will, or the incident that moved you to Canada, to the National Film Board of Canada?
Well, I guess...
Was it the culmination?
Well, it was the culmination, actually. You know, I mean, I had studied ancient African history. I knew about the role that the African had played in the emergence of human civilization before the Greeks and the Romans and God knows who else. I was studying African American history. It was encountering various racist experiences in America, and being revolted by what was on the screens of America and in the media, the print media, and so on. So I said, you know, I really have to get on the production side of information, generating information, because this country is, you know, is a scene of a lot of mental pollution. and of course a lot of mental slavery of the African American and the white American, as a matter of fact, has been conditioned to think in a very, very unhealthy way by the media. And I thought it would make sense for me to get on the other side of the camera, you know, and see what I could do to generate production materials that would be nurturing of consciousness as opposed to destructive of it, which is what has been happening for quite some time now.
Well, now you're at the...
With exceptions, of course.
Yes,
yeah.
I understand. But now you're at the National Film Board of Canada,
Yeah.
which was headed by Flaherty's successor in the evolution of the documentary, John Grierson.
Yeah, I don't know that he would think of himself as his successor, but yeah, Grierson was a very pivotal and significant pioneer in the documentary film world.
And what was your experience with him?
Well,
particularly at one.
Well, I mean, I was very, very impressed by a book that he had written called Grierson on Documentary.
What was the significance to you of the book?
The significance of the book is that it really pointed me very directly in the direction of making positive educational films for the enrichment of the intelligence and consciousness of people. You know.
Okay, so one fine afternoon you're listening to John Grierson, and he's entertaining questions.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And what did Bill Greaves?
Well, you know, listen, I guess I was just being a smart aleck, really. But he kept talking about truth. You know, it's very important that we have truth in these films, that truth is what, you know, the documentary is all about. And out of, I don't know, shared, I wouldn't say meanness, but just to be a devil's advocate or something of the sort, I said to him, "Why are you so interested in truth?" And he got very angry with me, but I shouldn't have.
How did he express his anger?
He said, "If that isn't the goddamn the stupidest question I ever heard," you know.
But you were talking about truth as surrounded by mysticism.
Well, I had been very heavy into mysticism, into yoga and that sort of thing. My guru was an Indian named Sri Aurobindo, and who was a very erudite and very significant thinker in terms of Indian and world philosophy, for that matter. And he spoke of truth on an entirely higher level of consciousness, and so I thought I would needle Grierson a bit and see if he took the bite and the bait rather, and you know, responded to this higher level that I had been inhabiting. You know, yeah, right.
But he finally said to is a Joe DiMaggio home run.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was saying that Louis Armstrong hitting high C in his trumpet, or Marilyn Monroe, or you know, Joe DiMaggio hitting a home run. This was truth, you know. That was well, it's just a moment of reality that was very, very important and very well received by humanity. Was the moment of truth, you know,
but
for him. Yeah.
The question didn't serve to expel you from
from the inner circle.
No,
not at all. Not at all.
You did good work, and you learned.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Grierson. And the National Film Board of Canada had many famous works by famous filmmakers. Norman McLaren with Pas de Deux and Neighbors.
Neighbors, yeah, absolutely.
And City of Gold and
That's
so
right.
forth. City of Gold brings us up to a technique which Ken Burns uses frequently, and today's generation of viewers think that Mr. Burns is the inventor of the animation stand. However, the City of Gold was glass plates found in an old mining town, and it was all animation, which is a technique that has been used by many of us. I think of Don Hyatt's work at NBC's Project 20.
Sure.
I think of your own work from these roots, which I think we'll take a look at this moment.
Drums for the marching men with victory medals on their chests. Drums for the dead left behind. Drums for the future they had fought for. Drums when the black 369th Infantry returned from the front in the year 1990. Proudly they moved through the streets towards Harlem. Because they had fought gallantly to make the world safe for democracy, to black people everywhere, particularly the young, the future looked very bright. Harlem, 1920. A little more than 600 acres of land. Hundreds, thousands of black people were coming here, particularly from the rural areas of America. A few brought memories from Africa. The Indians were here first, then the Dutch took over. Then came the English, Irish, then the Jews. But then the blacks started moving in from other parts of New York City, and the whites began moving out. By the early 1920s, Harlem was mostly black. The remaining white residents, feeling threatened, began moving to other parts of the city. People began calling Harlem the capital of black America.
From These Roots was one of the many fine works you did for television.
Yeah.
But there was also works prior to national educational television where we met for the UN.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, you know, when I was at the UN, I did a film called Cleared for Takeoff, and this was a very interesting film dealing with the flight of an airliner around the world.
Working with?
With Alistair Cook, was the on-camera host of the particular film, and it was for UN television, actually. And so when I left the UN, I decided that I'd like to work for NET, National Educational Television, and I made arrangements with Don Dixon, who was the head of public affairs there.
What year was this?
This was in 1960, I would say 1965 or somewhere around there.
Yeah,
and so Don saw my film Cleared for Takeoff with Alistair Cook, and he liked it very much. And then later on, there was a project that was developed by a friend of mine, a fellow named Bill Branch, who had wanted to do a film on the black, the Negro, they call it the Negro middle class. And Dixon felt that he needed a producer, an actual filmmaker to do this work. So to collaborate with someone like myself. And so that's how I came to the attention of NET. And then from there on, NET later on agreed to my becoming the executive producer of Black Journal, which was a series that I was co-host for. The rest is history. I guess it was NET.
They'll talk about NET. I think the first executive producer was Al Perlmutter, our friend and colleague, who was phasing out. He was there just to
well, there was that whole
so
unhappy period of American history, or racial history, when it was felt that the black community was really very, very angry with the American media. And this came out as a result of the Kerner report, that is the President's Commission on Civil Disorders. That report, which came in the wake of the riots, to explain why these riots were taking place all over America. Like at the high point, there was something like 150 American cities that were under siege, like with these racial riots. The Kerner Commission report felt that one of the reasons why there were these riots, besides the problems of discrimination in jobs and housing and education and so on, was the fact that the African American was not taken into account by the media, that the media ignored the plight and problems of the African American community, and also the African American community didn't have any access to the media to express itself. And
it was marginalized.
That's right, marginalized completely. So the upshot of it all was this series called Black Journal, and the staff of Black Journal was both black and white. You were on the staff of Black Journal, and Al Perlmutter, who was white, was and is still white, was the executive producer. So it was felt by the black members of the staff that if this is to really be a black journal, it should be black control. Black. So what ensued was a palace revolt, in which I ended up becoming the executive producer and co-host, actually, of the series, and we won. Were nominated for an Emmy, and then we won the Emmy for the Best Public Affairs Broadcasting. And I might add, it's the first and only time in the history of American television that there's ever been a public affairs series dealing with the black experience. There has never been, or even, let's say, black controlled, which is, I think, a very damning statistic.
That tells a lot. As I recall, the original participation of non-African Americans, such as Al Perlmutter, myself, and several other producers, was just to lend some support at the beginning and phase ourselves out, which I think we did quickly and did happen.
Yes.
Is that your recollection as well?
That is true.
Okay. We were all of the same mind bent, and we all felt that it was extraordinary that NET, God bless its sacred memory, when we see what's doing in public television these days, was certainly a forerunner, a precursor, a presager of the best of what we're talking about.
Sure.
Bill, do you find that racism in early sitcoms and early Hollywood still prevails today?
Yeah, I think it still prevails today, but on a much more subtle level.
How so?
Well, there's still the buffoonery. There's still the silliness, and of course, not only black sitcoms with black actors and so on are silly. White sitcoms are equally silly, But at least in the white sector, you get other kinds of programming, which is not silly, And so it works out okay for the white community, but for the black community, the special diet that the black community gets is these silly programs. And I always regard it as a form of mental pollution or psychological slavery, mental slavery. It's just not the kind of programming that helps people to pursue a better life for themselves.
You did a film called My Name is Africa, which I think...
The first World Festival of Negro Arts, that's what...
The World Festival,
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Langston Hughes.
Yeah,
I think we ought to take a look at that, because
Fine.
that symbolizes, in effect, what we're talking about
Absolutely.
right now.
I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. And I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep, like the rivers. Who am I? Perhaps I am a poem by Langston Hughes. Who am I? Look upon me. Look upon my images. Listen to my sounds. These are the gates through which you must pass if you are to know me. What is my name? My name is Duke Ellington, Langston Hughes, Marpessa Dawn. What is my name? My name is Benin, Ethiopia, Monomatapa. My name is Africa. Gather round me. Gather round my writers, musicians, artists. For we have many moments of creativity and history to share. Moments in which we shall tell the world who I am.
So, Bill, we have to struggle on as documentarians, because the documentary filmmaker and the parallel filmmaker, in order to go beyond the black community into other areas of American life, if you said, the alternative media, or whatever you wish to call it, is the bridge to this 21st century if America wishes to cross it. Now, you tell me that.
Well, you know, it's the shutting down of truth, let's call it, is a very dangerous path for the media to take, because it sets up a scenario of tremendous conflict that can take place in a society when people begin to lose faith in the government. This is not a very good and healthy situation, and the media has a special responsibility, it seems to me, to foster truth, transparency, and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, it would appear that the trend is to less and less truth and more manipulation with falsehoods of one kind or another. From a cosmic point of view, this is really dangerous, and what it translates into is the kind of thing that we had in America in the 60s, when people were not getting enough of the truth, and they began to, rebel in the streets, certainly in terms of the black community, and then subsequently with the Vietnam war protests and that sort of thing. Suppression of the truth leads to political instability. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. And I think the role of the independent filmmaker, particularly the documentary filmmaker, is one of opening up a window on the truth so that there can be some health in the way in which the society is being run.
The person who usually sits in this chair on camera, host Stephen Scheuer, is someone you worked with a long time ago. He was on the board of directors of a workshop think tank with you.
That's right, 100 years ago.
What was the name of the production company?
It was called Torchlight Productions, and Steve and I were very much involved with this project because it tried to set an example that interracial hiring, interracial talent could produce interesting, in this instance, radio programming, and that there was no need for this apartheid type of thinking that was still rampant, that was so rampant in America, because the people who came onto the show were people who were talented. I think Canada Lee was one of the people, and Ralph Bellamy was another. And this was put together by a group of people who were black and white, and so that's how Steve and I, met, and there were other people involved. Jane White, who was the daughter of Walter White, who was the head of the NAACP. She was one of the executives in this organization.
Here we are today into the new millennium. As Yogi Berra once said, predictions are dangerous, especially about the future.
Hear, hear.
You don't have a crystal ball,
yeah.
But what do you see for the next 10, 20 years about this invention called democracy in America?
Well, I think it's the next 5, 10 years or whatever, the immediate. I don't know about the distant future, but the immediate future, there's a danger that America could possibly lose its credibility completely, that America could conceivably resort to totalitarian, authoritarian decisions from on high, and could, for want of a better term, become a neo-fascist kind of environment, which I don't think anyone really wants to see happen in America. But that's, listen, the important thing is for there to be more truth coming out so that this doesn't happen.
Is Ralph Bunche a man for the 21st century?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think Ralph Bunche, and I don't want to make a commercial, but our film, it's not only a film on Ralph Bunche, we've also done 14 additional films on Bunche's life, what we call them, it's teaching modules. And these deal with specific aspects of Bunche's life that were left out of the 2-hour special that was on television that you may have seen, or you have seen, or were insufficiently, aspects of his life that were insufficiently dealt with. And they are only 30 to 40 minutes a piece, and these modules we're now trying to get into schools and classrooms and the like in order to, help people understand the world in which we're living in today, you know, culturally, politically, sociologically, and in other ways, to get a firmer grip on issues that are constantly taking place, coming to public attention, which are very serious issues. And Ralph Bunche and his legacy addresses all of, not all of them, but quite a number of them. As a matter of fact, there's a Ralph Bunche centenary celebrations committee that is headquartered in New York and has branches in other parts of the country that are celebrating the centenary of Bunche's life with the hope of raising the consciousness of people nationwide to a lot of the issues and solutions, conflict resolution solutions that Ralph Bunche managed to put together for the benefit of, you know, humanity.
So he was quite a guy.
I think so. I think so.
I think so too. I think you're quite a guy.
Well, you're a very nice man.
And I thank you very much, old friend Bill Greaves. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it too.